The Autism Research Institute relies on the generosity of donors like you to make this webcast possible. If you enjoy this presentation, please consider making a donation. Thank you.
I'm going to be talking out of our 5 books. We have 5 books we've written over the years. And these 5 books are available for purchase at the student store. So I'll be talking out of all these books. I got in the field quite by accident. It was 1973. I needed a class on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 3:15. That way I only had to go to school 2 days a week. I asked friends what the easiest classes were, given the schedule. They came out of 2 classes, an integrated arts class and a psychology class. They said they were both easy. So now how would I make my decision? Well, UCLA is a really big campus, so what was closer to my other classes? They were both equally as close, so I asked my sister-in-law, who was a double major in psych and art history, what I should take. She said, what are the classes? Well, integrated arts was one class. Professor Kaiser said, brilliant professor, you're going to love that class. What's the other class? Foundations of Behavior Modification. Ivar Lovas is the professor. She said, do not take that class. He's an evil man. He does evil work. Don't take it. I was intrigued. I took the class. And I stayed and stayed and stayed. So I'm glad she told me he was an evil man, did evil work. He did wonderful work. He was certainly a tough man, but did incredible work. We were on the Young Autism Project long ago. I started in the early 70s. John came as a graduate student with me in the mid-70s. This is how we looked way back then, Mitch Taubman, our other colleagues. So, things have changed over the years. We look a little more, a little older, I guess. A little wiser, hopefully, but a little older. We early on were working in schools. There's a lot of myths about the UCLA Young Autism Project. There's myths about how many hours we provided to families. There's myths about how formal we were and how rigid we were. There's lots of myths. One of the myths, too, is about our work in schools. I was my first school working in 1974. That's the first time I walked into schools because we were a big proponent of how critical it was to get our children to schools and work with schools. And we've worked with schools ever since. And because we saw advantages of schools, tremendous advantage, generalization. We're working in home therapy. We need that to generalize across other environments, and school being one of those environments. We saw the importance of group instruction. One-on-one is a means to an end, certainly a critical part of teaching. But we need to work in groups as well, and schools provide us that opportunity. Observational learning, huge. Huge. We can't teach our children every concept they need. There's just not enough time. So what we have to do is teach them how to learn from others and work observationally. And back in the early 70s, we were teaching children observational learning skills. And certainly social opportunities are abundant at schools. For all those reasons, we were huge proponents of working in schools way back when. Our work continues today. We work with school districts across the United States, across the world as well. And it's one of the work that I enjoy probably doing most. Because by working in schools, I'm touching more children's lives. I certainly believe in doing home interventions, the importance of that, and working one-on-one, get that. But in school districts, we can touch hundreds of children in a district. So we are devoted to working in school districts as well as doing home programming. I come in peace. I come in peace. The reason I say that is I'm not terribly politically correct. I promise you. I will send you off to lunch probably very irritated for many of you because I just see autism differently than a lot of folks out there. And I don't mind, I guess, one of the things of being older, I can pretty much say anything because I can say I'm senile and I didn't know what I was saying. But I am different in what my views are. One of my favorite, of the 5 books, this is my very favorite book. I just had to write a book about all the insanity in the world of autism. And, bless my publisher who said, okay, we'll publish it. So John, Mitch, and I wrote this book. This is what we wanted the cover to be. Lemmings going in the sea, but she said, no, you can't do that. That's not okay. So we agreed on this cover and this title. But it's all the things we look in autism in terms of treatments and speculations and just our, want to say at least what we feel is important. And again, being, in the 40 years, I guess we feel we have a right to at least put it out there. Talking about schools, defensibility. That's something that we're called in districts all the time because superintendents and special ed directors want to know whether they're defensible or not. That's the term they use. I find it a nauseating term because often it just means what they think is procedural defensibility. They cross the I's, they cross the T's, dot the I's. Their timing's right in terms of when they do assessments and the right team there. That's certainly one important part. You've got to do that. But for us, the more important part is that meaningful benefit kind of defensibility that you have to show. You have to show that children are making meaningful progress. Now, what the meaningful progress is, who knows that? I mean, that's one of those terms out there, and everyone fights about what it is. So it's a real question of what it is, but I can tell you typically it's not enough. Typically, the standard, the bar is way too low what meaningful progress is. When we look at defensibility, when I look at defensibility, I just think it's effective education. When effective education occurs, then defensibility will occur. And when effective education occurs, children do make meaningful benefit. And when effective education occurs, people are much happier. There's less adversarial work going on when you have effective education. So what I want to talk about is what I view the components of effective education are. When I go into classrooms and districts, what do I look for? How do I try to train teachers and aides and speech pathologists and everyone that touches a student's life? What do I do? What do I think is quality education? What's effective education? Well, it starts for me as evidence-based educational practices. That's one thing I'm looking for. Are they using procedures, strategies that are proven to be effective? IDEA, which is really the law that governs education in the United States, says we have to use proven methods. We can't just use anything out there because it feels right. Is there scientific evidence to show it to indeed be effective? That's what the law tells us we need to do. And I'm looking in classrooms and saying, okay, are they following best practice? And that's a hard one. What's proven? How do you navigate really the insanity of proven methods? How do you determine if this method is effective or that method is effective? Well, for me, it comes down to research. And there's different kinds of research, by the way. I hear that term is thrown out there, anything's research. If it's in a journal, it means it's research. If it's published, it's research. Well, there's different degrees of research. There's good research, and then there's research. We're looking for, is it in a reputable journal? There's hundreds of journals on autism, literally hundreds. But there's a journal you can pay money and get published in. That really doesn't count. That doesn't meet the standard. Is it a reputable journal? And part of being a reputable journal is that, is it peer-reviewed? Do expert panels, reviewers look at it and don't know who they're seeing? They don't know what the agency is? Is there significant improvement? Because improvement by itself is not enough. It needs to be significant improvement. And did they use experimental design? Which I know sounds nerdy to use experimental design, but it's absolutely the cornerstone of any research, be it medical research or psychological research, that you're really looking to see what the true reason for change is. In research classes, you learn there's so many reasons why improvement may occur. It may be placebo effect or maturation. It may be combinations of treatment. What research wants to look at is what is the true reason for change. This is how we look and we sift through the insanity. This is how we decide what really is proven. It also means we do critical thinking. We've got to be critical thinkers. We have to look at evidence and say, okay, weigh it. It may sound plausible, but is it? And again, we go back to research, being a critical thinker. But, I find in the world we're not critical thinkers on anything, let alone in psychology, let alone autism. We've got to become critical thinkers. How many times have you heard these things? And are they true? And if so, why are they true? I hear all the time children with autism are visual learners, like it's in their DNA. Is it? And if they're visual learners, why are they visual learners? Could it be that it's an easier kind of way to process information? that you don't have to have much memory, short-term or long-term. You don't have to pay very much attention because the words are on the board. You don't have to store it. You don't have to retain it. Because in fact, when you work with students and help with their memory and their processing and their attention, they become auditory learners as well. And I'm not suggesting we shouldn't help them visually. We should. But if we don't deal with the auditory issue, we're handicapping. We look at things like they need predictability. I hear all the time in IPs, you know, Ron, they like predictability. Well, who doesn't, for God's sakes? Most people like predictability. It's not that unusual. But if we use predictability too much, we create inflexibility. We all like predictability, but we can handle changes in schedules and routines to a certain degree. We've got to help our students deal with unpredictability. Prompt dependency. In the 40 years I've been doing this, I hear all the time, students with autism are prompt dependent, like it's in their DNA once again. Is it? Or is it that we overprompt? We don't help them become independent. We're in schools, we have Velcro aids. Of course they become prompt dependent if we don't fade those, and if we don't use them judiciously. Crave deep pressure. Really? Who doesn't? I go to airports all the time, and there are things, you know, it doesn't say, it says passengers with autism. It's for anybody. People like deep pressure, for the most part. People like good hugs and handshakes and quilts on you. And if you just look historically, we come from deep pressure. That's how we're born. Of course we like deep pressure. But it's out there like this is such an unusual phenomenon. And is it? Have robotic language. They have robotic language often because we teach them robotically. We sound like robots when we teach. Of course we model robotic language. And as children develop any skill, they're not terribly fluent anyway. And it takes a while to become fluent, aren't socially interested. We wrote a whole book on that. Indeed, we find our students are incredibly social. They just don't have the skill set. So we've got to be careful when we hear these things out there. The cause of autism. You know, I look forward to the day that we maybe could figure that out, but we have no evidence whatsoever. We have speculation, but we don't have evidence of what it is. And why the increase of prevalence? Again, it doesn't take much to really figure that one out. The diagnostic criteria changed in 1995. It widened tremendously. The awareness out there. You can't go a day without hearing about autism on the media, on TV, written. We just need to be critical thinkers and not just accept everything we hear. When it comes to evidence-based, I'm biased. I've done this for 40 years. But from my standpoint, the reading I've done in journals that have nothing to do with ABA, it's very clear that best practice is applied behavior analysis. That is evidence-based. But we've got to recognize there's a huge range within ABA. Not all ABA is alike. I've got to tell you, 95% of the ABA I see in the United States, I just disagree with. I'm sickened by. I go to top clinics in the United States, and it's like, if that's what ABA is, I don't do it. I had someone come to me at a conference and said, I hate ABA, but I'm willing to listen to you. And I said, what do you hate about it? And she told me what she hated about it, and I said, I'm with you. I hate it too, then. If ABA is rigid, punitive, not child-friendly, I'm not there. These are the hallmarks of rigid ABA. Primarily using food reinforced. It's not that you may have to use it in the short term, but we've got to get better than that. We've got to make it where children are working for social attention and just the joy eventually of wanting to do things. I see continuous data being taken as a hallmark of rigid ABA. We're killing too many trees. And we don't need to do that. We can take representative samples of data. I talk about using ABA bonics because you see ABA therapists talk in this very rigid, stilted way. Like that's the way we need to do it. And it's not. Or one-on-one instruction exclusively. Not all ABA is alike. I recently went on YouTube. I did a presentation on social skills development. So I went on YouTube to find out what's current out there in teaching social skills development. And I saw this whole new packet of DVDs with social skills development, and they all claim to be doing ABA. and it bothers me tremendously. Because if this is ABA, once again, it's not what I would do. And this is a film, a little bit of ABA out there that's proposed to be really good ABA. Is it?
What's your name?
Mackie.
Can we say that better?
Mackie.
Mac.
Mackie.
And how old are you?
2.
Good. How old are you? No, upward 2.
2.
2. And how old are you?
2.
Just like 2.
2.
Look. Look at me. Good.
The teacher, please.
Can you tell me what your daddy does? I don't know if you heard me. Hey, look, we only have 2 more tokens left.
Or the mother from the A.
Yeah. What does your daddy do?
He's a chef.
He is the chef. What does your mommy do?
Taking pictures.
She's taking pictures. Good job, Aiden.
But we were talking earlier about how he said.
Hi, my name is Zoe. What's your name?
My name is Casey.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Because children really shake hands when they
Can I
meet
play with
others
you?
at this
Lily,
age.
Can I play with you?
Okay.
Lily, can I play with you?
Because children really ask, can you play with, do you want to play with me? What child in the United States does that?
Money. I like to play with trains. I like to play with bubbles. Do you want to play bubbles with me?
Those are examples to me of just unauthentic ABA that produces unauthentic skills. That's rigid in its approach and doesn't really help children become truly social, because that's not what children do. Children don't go up and say, greet and shake hands. They just don't do that, and not places I go. And they don't say, do you want to play with me? And they don't do scripting in that kind of way. It's just not the way it happens. On the other hand, we've got what I consider a very lackadaisical approach to ABA. I go into many classrooms, they claim they're doing ABA, and I don't quite see it, because they're not using reinforcers when it's necessary. And I sure want to get to lackadaisical, by the way. This is where I want to end up, but I can't start there typically. I want to get where students are intrinsically reinforced, but I've got to assess, are they ready for that? I go to classrooms where there's no data being taken whatsoever. They're using a lecture style, which is not good for many of our students. They're doing group work exclusively and never see the value of one-to-ones when sometimes it is necessary. And using eclectic approaches. And by the way, I hear all the time, you know, eclectic is good. What's the research evidence for that? There's none. It doesn't show that eclectic approaches are good, because you're a jack of all trades, master of none. And it's confusing for teachers, and it's confusing for students. And so, to me, the lackadaisical approach isn't meeting the needs either, not initially. We feel structured and flexible as we want to be, and we call our approach structured flexibility. Structured flexibility means we have a roadmap, we have a structure, but we've got to be flexible within that structure and meet the needs of our students. I consider rigid to be old school, and I guess lackadaisical is fuzzy ABA. What we're more of an advocate is contemporary ABA. ABA can be quite different from place to place. Other components, high expectations are absolutely essential. In the world of autism, the expectations are just too low, especially in education. Thus, we get warehousing of children, not teaching the meaningful skills they need. We have to improve our expectations. I think of a student I just got an email about the other day that we worked with when he was a little boy, with limited language, really no social interest, let alone any interest in sports. Just got an email with his picture. There he is. High school football player, pretty big guy, excelling in AP classes. Our expectations are incredibly high. We recognize not everyone's going to get there, but we know we can make significant improvement. And it comes down to providing quality, effective intervention education. Accommodations only as necessary. In the world of schools, there's just too many accommodations being made. These are just recent accommodations I've seen in schools I've worked with, and all these bother me. You see students behind cubicles or partitions. Why is that? Well, because they're distracted. So we have to isolate. Can't we teach them how to handle distractions? Because the real world is full of distractions. I see chairs like that. And I get it if you have motor issues, if it's a danger issue. But the reason I see chairs used like that is they're sloped back and they're slippery. And they've got arm guards to keep children in them because they're afraid they're going to run away. Can't we teach them how to stay in their seats? Can't we have effective programming to deal with that? Again, visual. I'm not against visual whatsoever. But we've got to help students become auditory. And the Velcro aids, where we're just creating dependency when it's not necessary. I'm not against providing assistance, but as necessary. And this is a clever thing you can buy now. At recess time, teachers' aides take this out. And why do they do that? So they're safe walking back to the class, so they don't run away. And I want my students to be safe, absolutely. But I want to teach them how to walk back to the class and not need something like this that's artificial, that doesn't teach real skills. I'm okay with making accommodations, but only as necessary with a plan to get rid of them if I can. Quality programs, effective education, understand individualization. You know, we've lost the I in IEP. We've lost the I in IDEA. We need to individualize. We need to recognize children with autism are like snowflakes, unique, but with similarities too, by the way. There are certainly similarities, but we need to look at the uniqueness and educate individually. The law that dictates what we do is this. This is all about the law the Supreme Court handed down about what the role in schools are. And I just want you to note, it's about individuality. And I think we've lost that. If I've got 15 students in a classroom, I've got to have 15 programs. If it's a self-contained classroom. As I move out of self-contained, then individuality is a little less of an issue. Now I'm going to speak out work in progress. Effective education, well, it's catching students doing the right thing. The first line of defense for me when I'm in classrooms is, let's just catch the students doing the right thing. I get why when they're yelling or screaming or tantruming or sleeping or engaged in self-stimulatory behavior, how that's upsetting to everybody and how we need to deal with that. But if we just catch kids doing the right thing, we start changing behaviors around. And by the way, this principle, that's the beauty of ABA. ABA is not just for students with autism and Asperger's, it's for everybody. Because when my definition of ABA is, it's just great teaching. When I say see great teachers, they're doing ABA. They may not know it, by the way, but they are. And when I see people that think they're doing ABA, they often aren't, because they're not great teachers. Great teachers catch students doing the right thing. Healthy marriages catch each other doing the right thing. Good employers catch people doing the right thing. We've got to catch our students doing the right thing. This is an example of using reinforcement contingencies in a group. Trying to catch them doing the right thing.
Awesome answer. Quinn, what was it that Justin said?
You were not writing the toy.
Everyone say, way to go, Quinn.
Way to go, Quinn.
Nice listening to your friends. Ooh, you're a rope seed. Nice. Kai?
That's exactly right.
Not listening?
I had to fix myself up.
Okay, good idea. You know what? I was gonna move you down to here, but that was a really cool way to say it. I'm gonna fix myself up, so I'm only gonna move you this far. I'm gonna move you back up a little bit. That was a really cool, positive thing to say about it. Go ahead and tell me their names. I'll move them up.
What do you guys think?
Quinn,
Quinn, awesome job.
Colin, Justin,
She knows their names. Justin.
and Kai.
Oh, everyone looking at you? Love it.
Yes.
Nicely done. Almost everyone today is on Super Kid. Oh, hey, you know what? I think it's time for a Super Kid party. So everybody that's on Super Kid, stand up. Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. Remember? Not quite. Okay, whoever wants to go to Super Kid party, go ahead and go. Hey, Super Kid party. Stay and practice again, okay?
Poor Malcolm doesn't go to the Super Kid party. And that's what we've got to do in classrooms. We've got to catch the kids doing the right thing. If they don't do the right thing, then they just don't get to participate. But he gets a chance in a few more minutes to earn that. We've got to provide feedback to our students. We've got to catch them doing the right thing and not worry if the student's not doing the right thing, he'll get his opportunity. Dennis says, how come no one ever catches me being good? Let's turn that around. Let's catch our kids doing the right things, our husbands, our wives, our boyfriends, our girlfriends. Part of it is functional behavior assessment. Doreen talked about it. It's a hallmark of what we've got to do. When you go into classrooms, I look at whatever behavior issue, I've got to figure out what's the function of it. Recognizing behaviors have purposes. They have functions. There's advantages for the behavior. And these are the things we see oftentimes. When I go into classrooms, I see a lot of children are acting out, whether they're active or passively acting out, and often it's avoidant behavior. They're in a non-preferred situation. They're not good at what they're being asked to do. They don't feel confident or comfortable. And of course, they'll give you avoidant behaviors, whether it's tantruming or whether it's sleeping, whether it's engaged in self-stimulatory behavior. And I've got to figure that out, because the real key, as Doreen said, is teach them what to do instead. I've got to teach students how to avoid in a better way, whether it's using their words, or using pictures, or using some way to avoid. And with time, teaching the skills so they don't want to avoid. They embrace it. We know that sometimes it's some of the function of behaviors excess desires. They're hungry, they're thirsty, they want help, and it's their way to communicate that. We've got to teach them how to do that. Often it's to receive self-gratification. They're bored. They're not finding it entertaining. And so they go into a behavior set to be more entertained, just like you and I would if we were in a lecture in Chinese, in physics, and didn't understand a thing. We'd start daydreaming, we'd start tapping our foot, we'd start doodling, we'd do lots of things. We've got to help our students get gratified in other ways. And to receive attention, certainly that exists, both positive and negative, but I want to warn folks, don't be an attention bigot. And what do I mean by that? All too often when I go to classrooms, everyone concludes the acting out behaviors for attention. And typically, it's not. Our students are more complex than that. They're acting out for other reasons. Maybe attention is secondary, but just recognize there's other reasons why we all act out. And it's not just our students that act out. We all act out. We all act out for these reasons too. The critical thing is teaching replacement skills. Looking at our students, always catch them being good, but just teach them what to do instead. Recognize what the function is, the advantage they're getting, and let's teach them a different way to meet those needs. It's an essential part of effective education. Here's an example of teaching a replacement skill. This is a self-contained classroom, middle school, public school. Reactive plans, how do we react to the behavior issue?
If you ask her. Marissa, you stole markers. They're not a choice anymore. There you go. No, Marissa, you tried to. It's hard. All right, Robbie. Here we go. All right, Robbie, being really cool. Why don't you go get ready for snack? Kevin, I hear you were a superstar PE today. You want to do the claw before you cash in for your chips? Yeah, that was really cool, dude. Letting all those people go in front of you. Nice.
Now we come in and teaching alternative skills.
So, Marissa, what's this again? And this one is? All right. Show me which one's cool. So, cool is?
Heart.
Nice.
Right, Robbie,
So this one goes with?
Not cool.
Yeah. What's not cool?
Jackson, come on back.
Yeah. Screaming is not cool. All right. So look, Marissa,
Jack,
which
you
one
do it.
gets no
Nice job.
tokens? Good. Tell me.
Jackson, come on back.
Screaming gets no tokens. What about being quiet?
Tokens.
Yes, you're right. It gets tokens. Nice job. So let's say it all. Quiet is, and you get.
Tokens.
Yep. And.
Screaming. That's cool. No tokens.
You got it. Thanks, Kevin. You want to
Great talk though, because you might be more motivated. Yeah. You know what?
sit down?
They're easier to, or M&M's. You'll just get
Marissa, you know what? That's my marker.
You know what?
Marissa, you're being awesome, alright? You're being so good. You're not screaming. Look, are you being cool? I'm going to give you some extra skills.
Where's your card? Oh.
I'm going to stop it there because I'm short on time, but it's just teaching. Now they did their sprint of teaching. That's how I think of it in classes. We're doing sprints. We're doing 3 to 5 minute sprints, maybe once a day, twice a day, as many as we can get in the day. And then we're done sprinting and they're back in their group and getting educated in that kind of way. But by teaching Marissa what's the appropriate behavior, what's not, what she should do instead, it makes a tremendous difference in Marissa and the other students we work with. Teaching, learning how to learn skills. John talked a little bit about this. I think it's an area that we've neglected for too long. Not recognizing that a lot of our students don't know how to learn. We deal with the behavior issues. Those are now going away. We're dealing with those. But we've got to teach students how to learn. And these are things, this is an example of learning how to learn skills. I got rid of it. Wait 1 second. No, it's not. Okay, if we don't teach learning how to learn skills, which I will get to, it's like herding kitties.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, You
see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
These are those learning to learn skills we've got to teach, so we're not herding cats. We've got to help our students learn how to sit and how to give back reinforcers. When they go on break, they've got to be able to come back, and we've got to teach them that. We can't just hope and pray that's going to happen. We've got to work on teaching how to be calm and how to pay attention. And paying attention is just not doing look at me's. It's teaching them how to pay attention, how to make good responses. Teach them how to follow directions, how to learn from feedback. It's essential. I'm a believer, a lot of our students I work with, they don't understand feedback. So when you say, that was fabulous, I love it, what they're hearing is, doesn't change their behavior. We've got to teach them contingency so they understand feedback. And we've got to teach them reasoning skills. And we've got to teach them how to wait. These are skills we've got to teach in sprints. I sure want to get to the communication, the social, but I recognize if I have behavior interference, and if I have students that don't know how to learn, I can't effectively teach that. Whether I have to spend 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, I'm going to work on teaching them how to learn because I'm not going to be effective in anything else I do. Once I have those skills, then I can start teaching other things. One of the ways we teach it is through Cool Not Cool, a procedure you already saw with Marissa. This is a student that was having problems in inclusion, and you'll see what the problems were. And we had to teach them learning how to learn skills within an inclusive setting, and this is how we taught it to them.
One is sit. Sit. Nice. You say it.
Sit nice.
Sit nice. Yes. Can you scoot over a little bit more? Perfect. Sit nice. And the other one is no being what?
No being silly.
No being silly. And then the last one is follow directions.
Follow to action.
That's it. Okay, if you do those 3 things, you get a token, okay?
Okay.
So we'll say it one more time. Sit nice.
Sit nice.
Follow directions.
Follow directions.
And no being...
No being silly.
That's right. High fiving. All right. Hey, are you sitting nice right now?
Yeah.
Are you following directions?
Yeah.
Yes. Are you being silly?
No.
Excellent. You
I'm
know
just
what?
being happy.
Yep. You get your first token. You want to... How are we doing?
Good.
Yep. Are we following our 3 rules?
Yeah.
What are they?
Sit nicely.
Sit nicely.
Listen to instructions.
Listen to instructions.
And not be silly.
And not... Wow! You are on fire. Nice job. Guess what? Ta-da! We got all our tokens. So we're going to try something a little different. What do you want to do? This says cool. Do you know what cool means?
No.
Cool means good. Like, see there's a thumbs up? That means good. You're doing it right. Okay? What does cool mean?
Good.
Good. Doing it right. Okay? This one says not cool. Look at the thumb. What do you think this one means?
Down.
Do you think this one means doing it good or doing it not good?
Not good.
Not good, right? Doing it wrong. Okay? So this one says
Good.
cool. And this one says
Not cool.
Wow, you are awesome, dude. You know what? You're sitting good. Following directions. Are you being silly? Nope. Alright, let's see which one you get. Get a spaceship.
Awesome. You know, the cool one.
That is nice. Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do. Carrie and I are going to act out a scene, okay? And you got to watch me, and you got to tell me if I'm being cool, okay, or if I'm being not cool, okay? And I might be silly. So if I'm being silly, I'm being
Not good.
not cool, right?
Not cool.
Yeah. But if I'm sitting good and following directions, I'm being
Cool.
cool. You got it. Okay. All right, you ready? All right, when I say, now you gotta watch me, okay? And then when I say cut, you're gonna tell me cool or not cool. Okay, you ready? Okay, here we go.
All right.
Okay.
Check it out, Rick. We're gonna read Stanley's Party.
Cut. Which one am I being?
Not cool.
Ah, that's right. Was I being silly?
Yeah.
Yes, and being silly is
Not cool.
awesome. Hey, guess what? You're not being silly, and you're following directions, and you're sitting really good. You think you should get a token? What about a spaceship? Nice job. Good working.
Lucky.
All right. Okay, we ready for the next one? Next scene? Okay, here we go. Action!
All right. Stanley knew he wasn't supposed to sit on the couch. What do you think he's gonna do?
He's gonna sit on the floor.
Might be right.
Cut.
Cool.
Yeah, why was I cool?
Because you're not laughing.
Oh, good. Am I following directions?
Yeah.
Did she ask me a question?
Yeah.
Did I answer?
Yeah.
Yes, that's being...
Cool.
That's right. Nice job. Hey, are you being cool? All right, and a token for you.
Yeah.
You're working hard.
So Stanley, he put one paw on the couch and he waited. Nothing happened.
Look at the lamp! Look at the lamp.
And then you put a second paw up.
There's a dog. He's laying down. He's
Slowly.
laying down on the couch.
Stanley dragged his whole huge body onto the couch. And he sat there.
He's sleeping!
He sat there nervously
Cut.
listening.
Not cool.
Oh, why am I not being cool?
Because you be so loud.
I'm being loud, right?
Yeah.
Am I listening to her?
No.
No. Am I following directions very good?
No.
No. Wow, dude, you are on fire. Yes. You are awesome.
Another type of learning how to learn skill we work with is working on stress management. Recognizing that students certainly have frustration, stress, and anxiety. and taking care of it by teaching them how to cope with that, which is certainly our preference, to give them the skill set so they can deal with it. There's a classroom, that middle school classroom, with students that are pretty impacted. But every day they get this.
Together. You too, James. Turn it out. Up. Keep them up high. 1, 2. Up high. Keep going, Jack. Keep going, Riz. 3, 4.
An interesting note of this classroom, this is the third year of consulting with this classroom. The first year they all had one-on-ones. The first year they all had out-of-control behavior issues. 3 years later, they're in group work. They have stress management skills as well as other skills, teaching, learning how to learn skills. Once we have the behavior control and learning how to learn, then it's time to devote to language and communication. But recognizing it's an all-day pursuit. I'm in IEPs all the time when we're arguing about 30 minutes versus 60 minutes. Really? Because they need 6 hours a day. It's not just 30 or 60 minutes, it's all day long. And we have to help our teachers and our aides. How do we do that all day long? Instead of doing pull-out, doing push-in speech work and helping it be a continuous effort. Components of being effective education is helping our teachers, aides, and us all become obsessively systematic. Obsessively. Good teachers, good ski instructors, good coaches are obsessively systematic. It's the difference of failure or success. We know the difference of seconds, centimeters, make a difference of learning or not learning. I was working with a 20-month-old last week, and we saw 1 second difference in feedback was the difference of him learning. We saw 1 centimeter where materials made a difference in learning or not learning. And complexity of instruction. We need to know student by student, are they a 1 second student or a 10-second student? Are they a student that we can say, hey, John, go over there and get the book on the shelf? Is that a good sentence for that student? Maybe. Versus book. We've got to change our complexity and be obsessively systematic, knowing our students and what do they need to accelerate their learning. Effective education is taking data, but user-friendly data. Let's not be killing trees. It's not necessary. We can get snapshots of data and find out how our students are doing. Data is not just for documentation purposes for IEPs. You need that. But I need data to know, are my students improving? And if they are, let's keep on doing it. And if they're not, let's redo it. Let's do something different. We need to take samples of data in most cases, but recognize there's a time we need to take more data, more continuous data. But we've got to train people how to do that and not give them black and whites. It's always continuous or it's always sample data. Meaningful objectives. Oh my gosh, I walk in so many classrooms throughout the United States and what they're teaching is just absurd. I walked in a classroom and they were teaching the diet of the octopus. So a resource classroom with 3 students in it. One was sleeping, one was engaged in self-injury, and one was running around the class. And they're teaching the diet of the octopus. Why? Virginia state standards. Really? Because the federal law, the IEP, supersedes Virginia state standards. Can't we teach meaningful skills? I was consulting in Virginia that day. When I saw that, I went back to my hotel drinking heavily. What's gone wrong with education that we're teaching these things? Mitch, my colleague, joins me. I tell him how upset I am over the diet of the octopus. And he said, I got one better for you. He walked in a middle school classroom and they were teaching Wigwam versus Wickiup. This is how we're spending time. On objectives that don't make sense. And we ask why? Well, I hear things like it's parent-driven. Parents are insisting. Then parents will say, no, it's administrative-driven. That's what they insist. I hear No Child Left Behind. I hear state standards. I hear all these reasons. And none of them are really valid because it's an IEP. What helps our students maximize, help them learn to get meaningful progress? I have a collection of these going. This is my newest entry is the bottom one. Last week, this entered in, teaching them about animal skins and for clothing. And it might make sense, but not for those students who are significantly impaired. Calendar, every classroom, they must have special training calendars in college. Because every classroom I go, they're teaching calendar. Does every classroom need it? No, not every classroom does. There are classrooms that do for sure. When you're transitioning a student to gen ed, they need to know calendar because that's what's going on. If calendar helps them understand their day, I'm all for it. But I walk into classrooms, it's the last thing they need. It's not what they're ready for yet. And we have to individualize their objectives so they do make meaningful progress. Just go to research. Again, I'm a researcher. In this journal, they talked about what the goals should be. They should be useful. And they should help independence and quality of life. That's what we should be looking for. You can go to court decisions that say the same thing. And journals that talk about what we should be teaching. When we have effective education, they are teaching meaningful objectives. Also, recognizing every minute is important. The clock is ticking. This is a schedule I pulled off a classroom a few months ago. When you look at it and you analyze it, what's being taught? Really, almost nothing is significantly being taught. Even the desk work you'd hope would be meaningful, but it wasn't. And when you look at this and you analyze how many minutes a day were these students being really educated, almost none. The SLP was wonderful, so I give them 45 minutes a day, and that's about it. Or, I'm sorry, a half hour a day, and that's about it. And in classroom after classroom, I go and see what are they teaching? How is the time being spent? And it's not being spent productively, and the clock is ticking. I much prefer schedules like this that we try to integrate in the schools we work with. We look in, this is 15 different blocks we've got, but recognizing walking to class is not for the purposes of walking to class. It's for the purpose of greetings. It's for the purpose of behavior control. It's for the purpose of language. When you get to things like snack time, I get that if they're younger, they need snack or an older nutrition, but recognize this is not for the purpose of eating. There's so many more objectives that need to be accomplished. Every second is precious. We need to recognize a continuum of placement. Again, I apologize, I come in peace. But I recognize there is a continuum of placements. Self-contained is not a bad thing. For some students, exactly what's necessary. But for some students, inclusion is what's necessary. And recognizing there's in-betweens. And where is a student going to make the best progress? Sometimes we put them in inclusion and they're not ready for it, and we set them up for failure. And the law is not they have to fail before they move down. Do they have the skill set so they can be successful and feel good about themselves in there? Or do we have the ways to teach them that setting? Because sometimes inclusion is not inclusion. I was in a classroom last week where there was a student at the back of the room in a desk with 2-on-1. Is that inclusion? I don't think so. I get why we've moved away from self-contained because most self-contained is poor, but it doesn't have to be. Self-contained can be the minor leagues to help them get the skill set they can get to the majors. And recognizing there's in-betweens too. And ultimately, Gen Ed is where we want our students. I want my students, if they can get there, they don't need any supports. This is my goal. But I've got to recognize to be a great skier, you've got to sometimes start on the bunny slopes. And to be a great pitcher, you've got to start in T-ball and get to be an expert skier and get to be Strasburg. I evoke Steven Strasburg, who probably many may not know, but a baseball player for the Washington, sadly, who's no longer in it. He came out of college the #1 player. They said the best ever. Where'd he start? Not in the majors, because they recognized he needs some tooling, some help, and didn't want him to fail. We've got to recognize the continuum of supports, continuum of placement. We've got to deal with the challenges. Effective teachers and aides and administrators and parents, we deal with the challenges. There's lots of challenges, and I get it. There's not enough, teachers just don't get paid enough. They just don't for the work they do, nor aides. There's not enough staff in most classrooms, and there's certainly not enough time. There's competing priorities, and there's not feeling successful. And there's angry everybody. Cafeteria workers, parents, everyone's angry. I get it. There's tremendous challenges we need to deal with. And the pressure for rapid change. I get we all want rapid change, but that's not how it works. It doesn't work with you and I. You have someone that's depressed in private practice and therapy, you don't turn them out in one day, one session. It's a process. And we've got to recognize it's a process. I think of my favorite educator, John Wooden, and the quote when he said, "Do not permit what you cannot do interfere with what you can do." All too often in classrooms, we admire the problem. We know there's not enough staff, so what do we do about it? We've got to make it happen. If I've got to do sprints and I've got a classroom of 25 students and I've got to sprint for 3 minutes, I've got to be clever how to sprint on a one-on-one for 3 minutes. It means I've got to come up with an activity that keeps 24 safe and someone involved and sprint for 3 minutes. And then get them out of the sprint and get back to my students. We've got to look at the challenges. We've got to look at the challenges of no money and no staff and not enough time and competing priorities and problem solve. We can't admire the problem. We've got to work with the problem. Ongoing training is essential. And it's sort of the pitch I make to all administrators. Our teachers need help. Our aides need help. Our speech pathologists, our bus drivers, our school nurses, our cafeteria monitors, they need help. We need to recognize by providing the training, we're going to get to meaningful progress. And understand, training may seem expensive, but it really isn't. Because we can reduce ratios and we can get students to less services and we can get rid of litigation and angry IEPs and all those things. But it means we need to provide training. And I look at training as how do you teach your 15-year-old to drive a car, which I'm currently doing. So that's me in a football helmet as I'm teaching my son how to drive the car. How do you teach a 15-year-old to drive a car? Well, you start in the parking lot under perfect conditions. No speed bumps, no great weather, and then you move on to surface streets. And then eventually, it's to congested streets, the freeway, and the Autobahn perhaps. And I have to help administrators understand training is a long-term pursuit. You just don't come in and train in one day. I think of an administrator that contacted me to train their school district and asked how much my price was. I told them, and he was giggled with delight. I said, "Why are you so happy with that? What's going to cost you?" And he said, "Well, you got to see it from my standpoint. If I bring you in for 3 days of training my staff, we will be defensible. We're looking at lots of litigation, so by 3 days we're defensible." And I said to him, "No, that's a 5-day training, not 3. That's a joke. Training is ongoing. You just don't spend 3 minutes in a parking lot 3 days, perhaps. It's an ongoing pursuit. It's working in partnerships. The reason John and I came up with the name Autism Partnership was not because he and I are partners. It's because we believe that we have to work in partnerships, parents together, schools together, speech pathologists working with all of us, aides working with teachers, working in partnership. And finally, learning should be fun. I get why people don't like ABA, because it's typically not very much fun. And I recognize sometimes it can't be. Sometimes you get to skills that just isn't fun. But we've got to attempt to make it as fun as possible, as natural as possible. We make it fun, then students want to learn. We don't get the resistance. We don't get the avoidance. When we make it fun, teachers want to be there. They want to feel satisfied and enjoy, and we can make learning fun. Here's an example of making learning fun.
Let's see, I want Huck and Elle. You guys are going to be partners. Elle, who's your partner? Huck, nice. And Ryan and Brayden are partners. So when the music stops, what do you need to do?
Find your partner.
Find your partner. What do you need to do, Ryan, when the music stops?
Find a partner.
Find your partner. When the music's playing, what should you be doing?
Dancing. Running.
Dancing and running around.
Did you ever see?
Good job, everyone found their partner.
These children have a good time. They don't know they're being taught important skills. They don't recognize that we're doing joint attention. We're doing following directions. We're making kids like to be together. When these children start out, they didn't necessarily like being around other children. But if we do it in a fun way, they start enjoying that. And they're learning labels. They're learning lots of different things. She needs to learn not to bite, perhaps. Maybe that'd be an important thing for her to learn next when she's excited. But nonetheless, we can make learning fun, and we've got to make learning fun. If we indeed follow effective education, students will make meaningful progress. And we've got to recognize that's an individual determinant. For some students, meaningful progress is they learn 25 words a day, because given their level, that's what's meaningful. For other students, it may be 25 words in a month. It depends. But I know the bar is way too low oftentimes. And if we have low expectations, it'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not just about expectations, it's about training, it's about doing all these things in a classroom. But recognize that when we provide good education, everyone's happy. We're happy as consultants, parents are happy, and most importantly, the students are happy. Students are incredibly, incredibly capable. I think that's why John and I have loved working on autism for all these years, is seeing the successes. And success is not just recovery. Unfortunately, there's so much about recovery out there. And again, is that a possibility? Absolutely. But it's every student making significant progress wherever they're at. Whether that is just being able to have friends, maybe limited language, but they have good social opportunities. That's meaningful too. So we've got to look at meaningful and define it in many different ways. With that, I think it's time for our panel. So John and Doreen, I think we're all supposed to be up here. And if you have questions, again, now you can ask them to the panel. Thank you.
The Autism Research Institute relies on the generosity of donors like you to make this webcast possible. If you enjoy this presentation, please consider making a donation. Thank you.